Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. I'm Deb McBride. This is April 7th, a Sunday in the year 2024, and we are now in the midst of Mercury retrograde, and in less than 24 hours, we are having an eclipse, a solar eclipse, a total solar eclipse in the sign of Aries. Wowie! Is there a lot going on? And, people aren't themselves. Stuff is weird. I have one heck of a story to tell you, Astro Darlings. So, as you probably know from listening to this podcast, Mercury's retrograde in Aries. And there's this experience of a lot of Aries energy. In fact, Venus is in Aries, and the moon met with Venus already today, 12:22 p.m. Eastern time, which was 10:22 a.m. this morning for me. And it's been really a very interesting ride. And I use that word specifically. So let me give you a wonderful example of Mercury retrograde in Aries and tell you this story that happened to me the other day. So Wednesday, when Mercury was already retrograde and the moon was conjuncting Pluto, but early in the morning, and it wouldn't have affected this, but it doesn't matter. The vibe was there. The moon was in Aquarius, and that was the day Venus and Neptune were joining each other, and Venus was not in Aries yet until Thursday. So late morning, around 11:30 on Wednesday, I had to go to Multiplaza Mall, which is right near me here in Escazú. And technically, I've walked there, but it's when you want to do an exercise power walk. It's a long walk, but it's walkable. But I took an Uber to get there, and I had to get certain things that they only have at Multiplaza Mall. And so I got those, and I had to get back here for 1 p.m. when I was supposed to have a class with Yerlin, my mentor, my coach. And she posted it for 1 o'clock. And so I ran around doing what I needed to do quickly so that I could get back here for 1 o'clock. And I got an Uber home, and the Uber driver was fine, in the beginning. And then we got onto, there's a small stretch of highway. It's a long highway, but there's a small stretch that you have to drive on when you're going to and from Multiplaza from my house, unless you take the long way around, which is a whole other neighborhood. So it's a toll road. And we were driving on the autopista, this little highway, or not so little highway, and all of a sudden he pulls over to the shoulder. And I'm thinking, what's going on? And I said, problema? And he said, sí. And I thought something was wrong with the car. So I'm looking at the car, the dashboard, and seeing if there's lights flicking or something. And there weren't. And he explains, and I understand, that he missed a turn, that the app is telling him, they all follow the app is telling him that he was supposed to exit. And actually he wasn't, but I'll get to that. He did not take the exit. And instead of what happens, okay, anyone who drives, and I've driven, or you've been in a car, if somebody misses an exit, what do? You just keep going. You go and you turn around at the next exit. But the next exit is where I live, and this is what he should have done. But he did not keep going. He backed the car up. That's right, you heard me. He reversed. He went in reverse. He put the car in reverse and was on the shoulder, and it wasn't like 3 inches away. It was the middle of the highway where he put the car in reverse, but in the shoulder, and backed up to the exit that thought he was supposed to take, which is just a couple of stores, Price Smart, Office Max. And he rolled the car back. And I knew this was wrong. And I said, no, autopista. And he's just like, no. He's pointing to the app. And he is driving in reverse. So I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I'm going to die on one hand. And I've never experienced a more Mercury retrograde experience with someone driving backwards. We're moving backwards. We're actually moving backwards. I did not ask him what sign he was, but my Spanish isn't that good. But we drove back And then he took this exit. And then upon getting through the exit, he realized that he winds up back on the autopista because that's where the exit goes. It takes you past those stores if you need to go to them, but we didn't. And then he went, oh, and I said, sí, yo vivo aquí, meaning I live here. I know. And he's pointing to this other little tunnel that goes to Avenida Escazú, another little shopping area. And I said, no, no salida, no exit. There's no way out of there. You have to take the autopista. So he's like, oh, and he's just sort of chuckling and pointing to the app like it's the app's fault. He's not listening to me. He's just listening to the app. Wonderful Mercury retrograde experience. And I'm furious like an eclipse in Aries, right? So, okay, I'm just going to go home now. And I got home in one piece, thank God. And I just looked at him and I didn't get angry or anything because then he'd give me a bad review. And I needed to complain to support. So I went to Uber support and I got in just at 1 o'clock. I put on the Zoom. I'm waiting to get into the class and I start texting Uber support and telling them that this stupid driver went in reverse on the highway, on the shoulder, but on the highway. You don't do this. You don't put the car in reverse on the highway. And I explained how dangerous this is and this guy should not be driving for Uber. And meantime, I normally would have taken an SUV Uber, which was going to take like another 7 minutes to wait, but I didn't because of the class going to be at 1 o'clock. And by 1:20, Yerlin texts us or messages us and says, I don't know why that says 1 o'clock, maybe because I did it when I was in Colombia, but the class is at 2 o'clock. So I rushed home with this crazy nut to only find out that I didn't have to be home, which wasn't her fault. It's Mercury retrograde again. So I get a message back from Uber saying, we're sorry you had an uncomfortable experience. And I'm thinking, no, that's Mercury retrograde too. I did not have an uncomfortable experience. And I used this Aries energy. I had to use this Aries energy, all of it, to make a point with these people, which they were not getting. I wrote, this was not an uncomfortable experience. This was a dangerous experience. And I wrote in capital letters some of the things too. Like you have to pay attention to this. This man did this was illegal. And I'm surprised the police weren't around because they would have stopped him. This was illegal. This was dangerous. All of it was wrong. And and then they write back to me, we're sorry that your driver took an inefficient route. And I said, the driver did not take an inefficient route. You're not understanding what I'm saying. And I think it came back again. Your driver took an inefficient route. And finally, when I got really, really angry and used the Aries energy for all it's worth and spoke up for myself, which is what we do with an eclipse in Aries, I said, the driver was an idiot. And are all of you at support idiots as well? Because that's what it sounds like. Nobody's getting the message here at Uber. Nobody's understanding that this was dangerous and this guy should not be driving for you. That I could have been killed. I could have been in an accident. This could have been really ugly. And when I finally called them idiots, that's when I got the answer. And I was being polite, believe me. That's when I got an answer that said, we're sorry for this experience and we will make sure that this doesn't happen to you again. And they can't really control that, but at least they understood that this wasn't just, he took an inefficient route. They didn't refund my fee either. And I said, I don't care about the fee. I don't care about the Uber, how much it cost. I want you to know that this man should not be driving. So they weren't taking it seriously. And I just don't know what the hell was wrong when I said the guy's driving in reverse on a highway. So all that Aries energy, all that Mercury retrograde driving backwards, miscommunication, misunderstanding, class at the wrong time. Believe me, by Thursday, I was exhausted on Thursday. And it continued from there. There were other things that happened that day that were really irritating, but Wednesday was pretty nasty. And I just, there are these moments, and I felt it very strongly then. And this is the thing about eclipses. This wasn't just some passing thing. It was really a bad event. And when we have eclipses, they don't have to happen tomorrow, okay? They can happen yesterday. They can happen 3 days before. We're in the season. We're in the corridor. And, this was a bit premature as far as the timing of the eclipse, but it was still this eclipse, and all that Aries energy was still there, Mercury and the Sun, and the North Node and Chiron, all in Aries. And now we have Venus, and then we have the Moon also, and it will make that conjunction tomorrow. And this is where we have to, like I said, keep your head, right? So this is where I didn't give him cause to, rate me badly on Uber. He probably gave me a good rating. I think I saw that he gave me like 5 stars and all that. If you drive Uber, or if you take Uber, so I didn't give him reason to, because I could have gotten really pissed off at him, but I didn't. Instead, I, just allowed the moment, and I just went in and let them have it on the support page, which was, as you can see, a challenge. So one of the lessons learned here is that during Aries times like this, when we're dealing with Chiron, especially with Chiron is, do I really have a voice here? Am I really going to be able to be listened to and heard as I'm asserting myself, as I am speaking up and letting people know that this is not okay? Or am I going to get wounded, which I could have easily been? And, what's going to happen when I speak up? Am I going to get wounded just for speaking up? Well, probably not in this case, but, there was no reason on earth except my own lack of confidence or whatever. If that were the case, there's no reason on earth to not say something in this kind of an event. And yet when I came in, I think I was in shock, and I was like, well, I guess I have to report this. No, I was concerned about getting to class too. I was thinking about class more than anything. And I was thinking, Deb, wake up. Yes, you have to report this. This is really bad. This is really bad. And so that moment, and it was just a moment, it was a minute. Like, there was never any, maybe I really shouldn't do this. Oh, I don't know. Put the phone down. No, there was no Mr. Nice Guy here. There was, this is wrong. This is illegal. It's dangerous. And I need to speak up. And there's these moments that we're going to be tested during these eclipses, especially when, like, something like this, it's exactly on Chiron. Exactly. The moon hits the sun at 2:21 p.m. Eastern time, and then hits Chiron 2:21 Eastern time. They are exact. This is exactly with an eclipse in Chiron. Okay, so this is where, Chiron's energy in this says, I don't have the right to speak up. I don't have the confidence to speak up. If I speak up, I won't be heard, or I won't, my voice doesn't matter. My energy doesn't matter. My self-assertion, it doesn't make a difference, etc. I pushed until I got an answer that was realistic. Okay, so I said, after this, I said, this was a really good story for the podcast. Got to tell that one, because it had all the elements, right? All of the elements of what's going on right now. And the thing about allowing Aries to step forward and speak up is so important. And this is why we have Aries. There's dark and there's light in every sign. When we have something like this going on with Chiron in Aries is not trusting the self and the soul opinion of you, and listening to you, and above all, the static and the noise of the eclipse and the noise of life. If you have Chiron in Aries, there's the flip side of it, which is, well, I have to please others or I'm going to get wounded. If I listen to me and please me, I'm going to get wounded. And I've been wounded by speaking up. I've been wounded by standing up for myself. I've been there in the past in much more serious long-term situations that I had to speak up in my past and professionally, where I had to speak up. And things I had to, and this is where women get called the B word. And, you know, it's important when something like this, I could prevent somebody else getting injured because of this driver. So we have to think of the bigger picture always. And speaking up during an eclipse with Chiron is important, even if like it's uncomfortable. So it wasn't uncomfortable for me because I was like, you guys are going to get this message whether you like it or not. You know, I do not ignore this. And I wrote to them enough. I continued the conversation on Thursday. That's how long it took me to get like the message across. So this is a don't give up eclipse. This is a get the message through eclipse. This is, you know, we have to be confident in our energy eclipse. And the thing is that when we are needing Aries energy, there's always going to be a time when we need that Marsy Aries energy, okay? And when we need that Aries energy is when we are doing something for ourselves, for our business, for our life, for our children, for whatever. And we are stepping forward in what we feel is right for us, okay? Listening to everyone else is the option. And I think that's what Chiron does here too. I could listen to everyone else's opinion and not stay strong in my own and find myself lost on the path because I listen to everybody else. That's happened to me in personal relationships as well. So, you know, it is so important to listen to what and your gut is telling you and what your gut knows to be true about your life, your business, your family, whatever. And listen to that and step forward into that and not allow people to get in the way of your own soul knowledge that this is the correct mode of action. I hope I said that right. You know, when we acquiesce to somebody else's energy, to somebody else's opinions, to someone else's, like, what are you doing that for? You know that da-da-da-da-da. And it seems good the way it is. Well, I wouldn't bother, but are you kidding? Like, you really have to step forward into your own self-worth, self-esteem, self-confidence to know that something was wrong and you need to step forward. And don't let somebody tell you that it isn't. And this is the message of Aries. You've got to be straight as an arrow in your direction and know for sure that you are going to be correct in your path if you listen to your gut and not what everyone else is trying to tell you about your life or what you should be doing. So sometimes this is complicated because we go to people for advice. We go to bosses and colleagues and friends and mentors and, psychologists and accountants and lawyers and stuff. And we all have a moment when we can be wrong. And no one is perfect. But when you listen to that gut feeling, you got to go and make the decision and live with the decision one way or the other. You don't shy away from that decision, which is a very Aries thing too. You make the decision and you live with yourself, whatever decision you've made. You're in control of your life. And the important thing here is to remember that if you stay in alignment, if you stay close to your gut and you listen carefully, you're not going to steer yourself wrong. You can always adjust once you're on that path, once you've fulfilled that decision. So the important thing is to listen to your gut and step forward in your confidence and believe in yourself. And that's the message of Aries. That's really the message of Aries. And I really, really got clear on this before yesterday morning. I had to give a lecture for the Internations group, which I mentioned last week, and it was really lovely, and we had a really good turnout with, I think it was like 36 people at one point. It was on Zoom, and what I realized before that, I said, you have to encourage people to listen to themselves, because we're full of static from other people's opinions. And everybody's going to have an opinion. So if you don't listen to yourself, you're going to get confused. And then sometimes after you realized you listened to everybody else instead of yourself, you're going to get angry. And I had a dose of that last week too. And I have to say I was in a really bad mood on Friday. Friday was really, really tough to just be around myself. It was tough. And, I had to contend with my own errors in listening to other people about things when I should have listened to me. And even if sometimes it's easier to listen to somebody else because then we're doubting our own voice too. But it's like, maybe you have to go deeper to listen to your own voice. Maybe you have to go deeper to what you think is the right way to go, and you have to kind of figure it out along the way. Like, I know I have to do this instead of that. So-and-so is telling me to do that, but my gut says I got to do this. And if I got to do this, well, it might be more work because I tried what so-and-so told me to do, and it's not working. So you got to listen to yourself. And that's my big speech about Aries. The eclipse happens tomorrow. It's total. It is a total eclipse. We're going to try to see it here. I think it's partial here. So we're going to see what happens here. We're going to maybe have a little thing going on in the garden at lunchtime. And then we've got other stuff going on this week. Now, the ruler of the eclipse is Mars. And Mars meets with Saturn. And Mars is going to meet with Saturn. Mars is close with Saturn right now. They're in conjunction pretty much. But it's going to be an exact conjunction on Wednesday the 10th, which is 4:36 p.m. Eastern Time. And I think that that's going to have more information for us. And it's going to have more stability. There's not a lot of aspects like to outer planets from this eclipse or anything. So that's good, but there's a lot of fire. And then there's some earth. There's not a lot of air. It's just Pluto and Aquarius. But this Saturn-Mars it's even though it's in water, it's the water we have in the sky. It's in Pisces. I think it should ground this eclipse. I think it should, like I said, there's a lot of fire. So when we look to Mars, and it's in Pisces, which is not a straightforward sign, and, straightforward sign with conviction, not that a Pisces can't have conviction, but where Mars is placed, it's not the best placement for Mars. And Mars-Saturn is a little harsh, but structure is important, and stability and grounding. And this grounding is very, very important for this eclipse, okay? Just ground the energy. Don't lose your head. Think about it first. Think first. There's not a lot of air in the sky. Think first, and then take the steps you need to take. Then on Thursday the 11th, Mercury and the Sun conjunct. Now, a couple things about that. First of all, Mercury and the Moon are going to conjunct 10:39 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday, the day of the eclipse. So Sun and Moon conjunct, Sun, Moon, Chiron conjunct. It's all happening. It's all like happening at the same time. And then Mercury, remember what I said, the Moon turns around from the eclipse and bumps into Mercury. It's a bunch of hours later, but it's still an immediate conjunction with Mercury that the Moon makes. And the Sun, since it's going to be slower moving always than the Moon, the Sun doesn't make that conjunction with Mercury until Thursday the 11th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:03. And so when we have that conjunction, these are going to bring flavors of the eclipse, the Mars-Saturn, the Sun and Mercury. They may bring more information. Information is Mercury's thing. And as this is the sort of the midpoint of the retrograde, the Sun and Mercury are meeting up because this is what they do. During a Mercury retrograde, the Sun and Mercury will meet at some point because they catch up to one another. And then I always think that sometimes the retrograde gets a little easier after the planet conjuncts with the Sun. Venus, Mars, all of them, Mercury. And so then we have this moment where we're sort of halfway through the retrograde, so to speak. And it's really another 2 weeks, but it's an experience where we're like having a flavor of the eclipse, a bit of a recurrence come to us. And then, not now and not for a few weeks, eventually Venus is going to go over that point of the eclipse, 19 Aries. And then eventually, not as soon as Venus, but Mars will go over that eclipse point of 19 Aries. And they will trigger more information from that eclipse. But also, remember Mercury's retrograde. And as the moon moves off the sun and moves towards Mercury and then conjuncts Mercury, it's, Mercury is further on after the eclipse, but Mercury's retrograde, so it's going to go backwards. And on Monday the 15th, a week from tomorrow, a week after the eclipse, that's when Mercury and Chiron are going to conjunct Monday morning, April 15th. And they are going to trigger the eclipse all over again because Mercury is going to hit 19 Aries and come to that eclipse point. Now, we know that Mercury doesn't go direct until the 25th of April. And that means that Mercury goes direct and then eventually is going to pass over the eclipse point again. Okay, so we've got Mercury went over it before it was in eclipse, and now Mercury's retrograde, and next Monday it'll go over the point after the eclipse, and it's going to trigger the eclipse point. And then once it's direct and moving forward again, it will ultimately once again hit 19 Aries. So this is all very interesting, and we're not finished with this eclipse after tomorrow. So it's a powerful eclipse. It's solar. It's total. It is the exaltation point of the sun, which is a very intense place for the sun to be. It's its strongest point in the zodiac. I just think that it's really good to pay attention to these things because we are going to maybe have more emotions, maybe more information, maybe more subtle things come forward from the eclipse inevitably, because Mercury is part of the eclipse. It's not like it's completely disconnected from it. It is like 4 degrees away, 5 degrees away, so it's definitely part of the whole scenario. That's close enough to say Mercury's part of this eclipse. And we want to pay attention to what Mercury's doing. So don't worry, stay tuned to the Golden Astrologer Podcast, and we'll talk about it here. And we'll talk about this eclipse and how it unfolds over these next weeks, because we're going to hear from it tomorrow. We're already hearing from it. New York heard from it on Friday because there was an earthquake there, and I believe that they're connected, of course. We have earthquakes here all the time, by the way, and I'm sure there's been a few I know on this podcast where I was sitting here talking and I say, hey, we just had an earthquake. So we had one last Saturday, in fact, and it was a 4.6. The one in New York was 4.8. But so we have them. We're used to them. I guess it's a very different parameter when you have them in New York City, and it's not a place prone to earthquakes. But who knows what happens in the future. So yes, I do believe they're related. So we are getting shaken up. We are getting emotional. We're all emotional right now. Just take it easy. Go out and see the eclipse. Go visit the eclipse, but make sure that if you see harsh energy coming your way, if you know someone is prickly in your life, just maybe not engage with them so much. If you feel like you are having an experience of very deep, profound emotions and you're not feeling good, do what you need to do for that, whether it's contact someone like a professional for help, or don't delay it, because it is a very emotional time. Unless it's just something that is passing through you, which it's passing through you. But if you're very triggered by this, try not to trigger somebody else, okay? And just allow yourself to feel what you feel. Journal about it. I've been meditating a whole lot lately because it's just bringing me a lot of peace. I've been walking, I've been exercising, I'm doing things to keep things moving and our blood flowing, because Aries is all about the blood flow for sure. So don't let it all flow to your head and don't cut yourself, and don't engage in road rage. Don't drive backwards on the highway. And I'm glad I can laugh about it. My friend Mary, who is an Aries, by the way, and it was her birthday yesterday, she said to me the other day, she said, well, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you made it back. I'm like, yeah, me too. Me too. And so this experience of this eclipse is powerful. Don't get so swept away up in it. Just go, all right, they're in a mood. I had to deal with someone today. They're in a mood. All right, I'm just going to not bother them. Not going to bother them. Allow this to pass through you. It's only an eclipse. Sometimes eclipses change things in our lives. Things change after the eclipse, and we don't go back after that. Something happens, and you have to go forward. You always have to go forward. So, it could be a very internal realization during this time. Pay attention to your emotions, allow things to move through you, and trust yourself more than anything. Listen to your own voice. And unless, of course, it's telling you to do something detrimental, then obviously not a good idea. But, if you seek business advice or something and you're getting business advice that doesn't agree with your gut, then go with your gut. You can always go back and change things. Okay? So listen to your own voice. And this is the exciting moment of tomorrow. I'm sure I will have more stories for you next week on the Golden Astrologer Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to have a session because there's an eclipse and you want to know what it means for you, by all means, this energy, like I said, isn't going away after tomorrow. By all means, set up a session with me. Go to my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, click book online, and get your session scheduled, whatever it should be. Maybe you need some calming 5D Reiki so that it just brings you to a place of peace. Okay, we still have a rocking month of April ahead of us, and this eclipse is one of the highlights. So definitely think about, what you need and what would be appropriate for you astrologically right now. I also am an expansion mentor, and if you would like to know more about that, you can always email me, deb@debmcbride.com or info@thegoldenastrologer.com, and connect with me and ask any questions you want about it. I thank you for listening. Have a beautiful week. Have a beautiful eclipse. If you can see it, great. If not, you can watch it on the internet. And I will be on Instagram this week reporting to you as well, the Golden Astrologer on Instagram, and you can tune into me there. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful week.